Hey guys, this is for CC Cycle 2, Week 19, Composers and Orchestra. So we will be starting with Orchestra, and this 6 weeks is really fun because we get to incorporate music with the history, timeline, and geography that we've already been learning. So you do not need to have a degree in music. You do not need to have musical talent. This is actually even easier than Tin Whistle. It's more of like a history lesson plus active listening. So first thing first, wipe the sweat away. You're going to be okay. You made it through Tin Whistle, so you'll rock and roll for this. So before I get started on the actual lesson that I will be doing for week 19, I wanted to point those of you that are new to the resources that you need to use that will help you through the entire thing. So first things first, obviously your foundations curriculum. So for cycle 2, you want to turn to page 185, and it'll look like this. You'll have this chart. Cycle 1 and Cycle 3 are faded. And right here on Cycle 2, you can clearly see an overview of the time periods that we are going over and the composers that we are going over. So that's really helpful right there. And then if you turn the page, it's going to have like what to do for week 19, all the composers that we're going to be doing, and then kind of wrapping it up for week 23 and 24. So, but I'll be doing videos for each week so we can go more in depth with that. If you turn back to cycle 1, you see the same kind of chart, but cycle 1 is dark, cycle 2 and 3 are faded. But on this side, page 109, it's a little kind of introduction and letter about orchestra and composers. And so in this little letter, CC, kind of read over it for yourself, but some of the highlights are saying that the kids can relax and listen. And then it also explains that your 30 minutes is not taken up by you teaching and giving a lesson like it was kind of in Tin Whistle. The majority of your time will be for listening to these pieces. So that should take a little stress off of some of you. Another thing it talks about is that when we get to the composers, like when that week we're learning about that composer and that piece, give a little information on that. That's always really fun. Pick some fun or interesting facts to you. And give that to your class, and then encourage the parents that for the next 4 days, they can learn more about the composer and they can listen to other pieces from the composer, not just the one that you're playing. I mean, you're playing one piece from this composer. There are many more that they could go home and listen to. If they don't do it, then they don't do it. That's up to them. That's out of our jurisdiction. But you can encourage parents to dig a little deeper into this over the next 4 weeks, and you can show them how easy it is whenever you do this in class and you're not sweating it. So, and then the fourth thing I kind of want to talk about that's in this letter at the bottom, you'll see that, so attending, we're doing active listening. Expressing, they recommended you could do drawing or movements. I would not bring it beyond that. Honestly, there are weeks that they could just sit and listen very quietly and relax. But maybe if the second time through, maybe they are getting kind of fidgety or they are getting bored, or maybe you would like some art, then maybe puts out some paper and crayons and they can either listen quietly or they can color what they're thinking of or what they're imagining if they would like. I wouldn't go beyond that. No activities and cutouts and things like that, or games and things like that. I would just leave it at that. So now that we've covered the curriculum, I want to show you this really awesome book, Classical Music for Dummies. This is recommended by CC. This is what they want you to be using. This book has a ton of information. It has everything that you're going to need. So real quick, I will show you in the overview for the contents at a glance. This is what I'm looking at right here. So what's really cool about this is that, like you'll see in part 1, the entire history of music in 80 pages on page 13. This is going to talk about the Baroque period, the classical period, the Romantic period. So that will have some information in there for you. You can pull some fun facts from there. And then part 2, what you're going to want to look at, chapter 5, it's on page 137, a spin through your free CD. This is going to have like the name of the piece and the composer, and then it's going to have like the timestamps, the minute and the second timestamps of what's going on, like, oh, now the trumpets come in, or here you hear woodwinds. But I will walk you through that in the future videos. And then for part 3, chapters 6 through 10, they are talking about different instruments. So there's some fun facts in there. They talk about where you can hear this instrument the most. There's even a few jokes thrown in. It's really great. And then for I think it's like chapter 16, there's even some cool jokes in there. Oh, and there's this really funny one that kind of pulls in our science. I don't know what page it's on, but the jokes start on page 307, and it's like a few jokes in. It actually pulls in our science, and it's about Beethoven. And this will be a fun one to tell. I don't have it memorized exactly, but this guy goes to Vienna to visit the graves of some like really awesome composers. And so when he's there, he hears this scratching sound, and he's like, what in the world is that? And so he lifts open Beethoven's tomb, and he finds dead Beethoven in there, like marking off like musical notes or something like that. And he's like, what in the world are you doing? And he's like, can't you see I'm decomposing? And so that is a cute little funny joke that you can incorporate into your lesson really quick, because it pulls in our science. We talked about decomposers this year. So see, it all ties in together. We're just pulling in other subjects and having fun. And then the really cool part that I want to point out, in the appendix, you have a glossary. So if you hear the word trill, if you're reading your guide and you're like, trill, what in the world is that? Go to your glossary, look it up. It's going to tell you what it is. So there's a really cool glossary, and there's a timeline in the back. It'll talk about when composers died or when a piece was written. There's a whole timeline in the back. So this book is incredibly, incredibly helpful. It will really cover everything. Okay, so moving on to the week 19 lesson. What I like to start off with is telling them what we're going to be doing for the next 6 weeks, asking them. I want to hear from them. The little ones will give you some funny answers. The master's class might hit the nail right on the head. What is orchestra? What are composers? What in the world are we talking about? So ask them those questions. You don't want to spend a lot of time on that. Very, very quick. Just kind of introduce orchestra. And then I personally, like at our campus, we like to talk about the instruments on week 19. Some people want to do it on week 23 when you introduce the orchestra. So it's totally up to you what you want to do. Our foundations curriculum doesn't say that you cannot talk about instruments the week, but you'll see that they talk about introducing like the seating of the orchestra on week 23 and the orchestra song. So some people like to talk about instruments then. The reason I like to dabble a little bit and throw out some instruments the first week is because the next few weeks, when I'm pausing the music and I'm saying, listen for the trumpets. Does everybody hear the trumpets? Or these are the clarinets. I like to talk about the instruments the first week because I'm gonna be pausing the music, talking about them in the next coming weeks, if that makes sense. So, and our campus likes it that way too. They like to kind of talk a little bit about the instruments. So you could do that a number of ways. Either week 19 or week 23, when you introduce the instruments, you could keep it very, very simple and just pull out your guide and hold that up. Remember I said that there were, see there's pictures of instruments right here. So you could just easily point to it. Some people like to make copies of this and cut it out and like glue it on a poster. I have some posters that get reused every year. It's like, here's the woodwind family and it has little pictures of the woodwinds, and here's the percussion family and it has pictures of the percussion instruments. So I do like to introduce that on week 19, but I also talk about it in week 23 as well. So that is for you to decide. Maybe ask your director, or if it's up to you, then use your own discretion. And this is all it's taking me longer just to explain it, but it all goes pretty fast. Just kind of introduce, we're doing orchestra. I talk about the instruments. And then I introduce the classical period. So what I will do is pull this into timeline. Don't make orchestra something like extra, like this is just something random that we're doing. Make this an extension of what we've already been learning. We've already talked about the classical period. You can even bring your timeline card if you want, and maybe pull out some highlights, some great information off the back of the timeline card. Or if they're really little, have them do the timeline hand motion. Remember, we did classical period of the arts, and then just dig a little deeper into that. I like to just throw out a few facts. I just go very quickly, throw out a few facts. I'll say like the classical period was from the mid 1700s to the early 1800s. And that it was more structured, more controlled than the Baroque period. And then I move on to the Romantic period. That was from the early 1800s, 1830 to about the 1900s, like right at 1900. And the Romantic period was more emotional. So the music was written to help you maybe think of like a sunset or feel happy or sad or picture a rainy day. It was more about emotion and painting a picture, if you will. And so I like to just kind of introduce those. And what I do is when I throw out a few facts each week, what I do on week 24, just like a fun little review, if you have really littles, the moms can be in charge of the boards. If you have masters, you can divide them up into 2 teams and then they each get a board. And I'll ask questions like, what time period was the classical period? Like what years? And they have to try to, write the answer and guess. But that's for week 24. I just like to do like a little fun review to celebrate. And so after I have introduced orchestra, after I have talked a little bit about the instruments, and after I have introduced the classical and romantic period, then I just play those 3 pieces. You don't have to say what composer it was and talk about all of that. Just play the piece. Let them just sit quietly and listen to it. You can have the lights on, the lights off, whatever you want to do. Some people don't have windows in their room, so you might want to just leave the lights on if it's too dark. Let them get comfortable. Let them listen to the first piece. And then let them know, we're going to learn more about this on week 20. Maybe just play just a few minutes of it. Then go to the next piece. We're going to learn more about this on week 21. Have a listen, and they can enjoy that and listen to that. And then do that for the third piece as well. And some of them might say, gosh, I really don't like this piece, or, oh, I love this. The first one was my favorite, or the third one was my favorite. Just let them enjoy it and listen to it, and we'll cover more of those in the following weeks. So that's about it. The first week, week 19, is very, very simple. We're just kind of introducing what we're going to be talking about for the next 5 weeks following that. And so I'll be posting videos for those as well. If you have any questions so far, let me know. Check out your resources, read through those, grab that Classical Music for Dummies book, and just kind of flip through that, get familiar with it, because it'll be a real help to you. So that's all I have, guys. Thank you.